Almost every single Xbox exclusive on the platform is notorious for live service-based online multiplayer, always online co-op or competitive microtransaction-filled, DLC-driven and expansion extending games as a service titles, with little emphasis on a single-player story-driven narrative compared to the competition, which mostly offers a story-based game that is over a dozen plus hours. A stark contrast for much of the past decade on Xbox. Now, Xbox leadership have explained that the platform is about to break new ground with more big games than ever before on Xbox in over 20 years. Thanks to today's sponsor, Omaze, for offering this chance to support a great charity and get yourself an amazing gaming PC rig or working PC rig, a prize value up to $20,000. This is all you need to level up your gaming gear. Omaze is working in collaboration with Schools on Wheels, a charity serving over 50,000 students, tutoring and mentoring children of all ages, living in shelters, motels, vehicles, group foster homes, all in the streets of Southern California. Enter for a chance to win $20,000 in gaming gear and support a great cause, Schools on Wheels. Go to omaze.com/Colteastwood and your donation of $10 supports Schools on Wheels and enters you into this chance to win with Omaze. Follow the link in the description. Looking at the Xbox platform exclusives over the past 20 years, and the overwhelming majority of the biggest games were either the Halo, Gears, and Forza combination, or the onslaught of third-party partner games that Xbox Studios didn't even make in-house. And over the past several years, many of those games did not rate or sell in the upper echelon of success for the brand. Phil Spencer is excited about the future of Xbox starting this coming year with more and bigger games than they have ever had on the platform. When asked when Xbox will focus on big AAA single-player games, he said, "I think we're probably building more of those now than we have been in the history of Xbox. Platform holders, whether the platform is subscription or hardware device or a store, are actively investing in new and probably more risky things. Because if it works, we get value out of bringing players into the ecosystem." This folds into the concept that as Game Pass grows, with well over 23 million subscribers already reported in the summer of 2021, that the bigger Game Pass gets, the more Xbox games will need to bring to the service. With a larger player base at their reach, Xbox can now afford to take bigger risks with types and sizes of games, delivering the big narrative experiences that PlayStation and Xbox have both declared are not sustainable due to the massive upfront cost and marketing associated with AAA game expectations, budget, and normally a lack of extending playtime with online features. Matt Booty, head of Xbox Game Studios, explained how Xbox does not mandate what type of games need to be made for the platform, expressing specifically that every game does not have to be a games as a service online title with a persistent, open, online connected world. Matt said, quote, "We don't have any direction or mandate that says every game has to be an ongoing, sustained game. Take Psychonauts. There might be a Psychonauts 3, but I'm not going to tell Tim Schafer to go and make it. Knowing the history of games that he makes, I don't think he's going to be making a game that has seasons and goes on for 5 years. Sea of Thieves has longevity, and we're going to have Halo multiplayer start to be based around seasons, but Compulsion Games, our studio in Montreal, weren't told to go build something that's going to have seasons or 6 pieces of DLC or something. There's no mandate that they've got to figure out how to do seasons for a game." Close quote. Games as a service are defined by online components that are focused to keep players coming back with reoccurring content, challenges, or online monetized purchases to drive players to more content and playtime. Some of the most popular, successful, and well-loved games fall into this category. Right now, Xbox is working on several big AAA non-games as a service games. Let's take a look at what Xbox has in-house at Xbox Game Studios that is a narrative-driven, contained experience. Starfield by Bethesda Games is coming holiday 2022 and is strictly a single-player driven open-world RPG, meant to give players their own crafted experience across dozens or hundreds of hours across the galaxy, building a character, leveling up, and gathering gear and resources to follow a crafted story-based narrative from planet to planet in beloved Bethesda RPG fashion. Starfield will likely see expanded story-based DLC in the near future, but the game is truly a narrative-driven AAA game that gives you the experience contained offline, if that is what you're after. Hellblade 2: Senua's Saga is Ninja Theory's well-crafted, psycho-thriller based in the lore of mythology and mental health with visceral combat, award-winning visuals, and storytelling in the darkest corners of our minds. Nothing about this haunting journey through the broken thoughts of a troubled past lend to an online service-based business model. Hellblade 2 is a traditional single-player game through and through, and it's on its way to Xbox in late 2023. Outer Worlds 2 is a few years off, but Obsidian is planning a bigger version of this colorful action RPG that gives players the suite of choice, character building, and narrative that puts you and your selected crew in charge of how the universe unfolds and meets its comically tragic demise. Outer Worlds is a mix of gunplay, melee, subterfuge, and narrative dialogue, with the story unfolding at your command, with companions to command across combat areas. Outer Worlds 2 will see expansions via DLC, like we saw with the first game, but this is very much a single-player experience on Xbox. Perfect Dark from the Initiative Studio is a narrative-based action-adventure shooter featuring Joanna Dark with a mix of James Bond, Splinter Cell, and Zero Dark 30, with future modern tech and warfare, with a feel of body cam and third-person camera combat that takes Joanna Dark across Dubai and other globe-trotting locations, with traversal mechanics much like in Mirror's Edge to keep combat dynamic and fast-paced. The Initiative has explained that Perfect Dark is not a one-off, and that the game coming in a year or so is meant to continue with shorter campaign expansions, which sort of sounds like a games as a service title. But with most every AAA game seeing DLC, this isn't quite the type of service that most complain about when talking about games as a service titles. Avowed is the next big fantasy RPG from Xbox, from the veterans Obsidian Entertainment. Xbox's Phil Spencer recently explained that while Avowed is set in the Pillars of Eternity universe, not to expect it to mirror Elder Scrolls Skyrim, as Obsidian has set Avowed to be a unique take on the character-building open-world RPG, with their own style and gameplay loop. The combination of magic and melee certainly looks like what we've been missing from Elder Scrolls over the past decade, but one thing is for certain, is that Avowed is a single-player, narrative-driven, story-based game coming to Xbox, and it comes in the next year or so. Fable is a long-running franchise for Xbox and has always been a quirky, creative fantasy RPG and a single-player RPG. The talented Playground Games is working on the reboot for the new generation, and the third Fable, about 10 years ago, offered online co-op, and a canceled Fable Legends was an online service-based game that never got out of beta, and Xbox closed that studio. Now Playground Games is in charge of a full single-player reimagining of Fable for next generation, and although we have yet to see gameplay, Playground is already being hailed as top tier in the industry, and the world creation will be just as vibrant as the experience we will cultivate in this new RPG. Fable, all story, all narrative, and is targeted for 2023. One final game we know very little about comes from what Matt Booty referred to from Compulsion Games that normally create a single-player story-based game. They are reportedly working on a third-person action-adventure game that closely resembles the feel of Uncharted and a mix of BioShock. Compulsion Games has asked Xbox for a much larger budget to push outside of the AA production they have worked with in the past. They have been very quiet about what they are working on, but being really the only studio in the suite under Xbox that is not talking about more or showing what they have in the works. Compulsion's next game is shaping up to be a single-player narrative with emphasis on player choice to shape the outcome of the world, and I hope we see something soon from this new Xbox studio next year. The remainder of Xbox studios are working on big games with online components and opportunities to keep players returning to lobbies, co-op sessions, and expanded content being added in regular intervals. And those games will be hugely successful with millions of players keeping the games alive and active, which in turn generates more content to be added to refresh the experience. But it's also good to know that for the first time in a long history for Xbox, that the team is working on big AAA, high-budget, story-driven games. Now they will have a balanced mix of online expanding games for people who play all year long and a suite of character-driven games that will leave a lasting impression on players as they explore these new worlds. And for Xbox, this is something we've been waiting for a long, long time. This is Colteastwood. Thanks for checking out this video. Looking at some of these games that they've made in the past, like Rise Son of Rome, Quantum Break, Recore, some of these games that they partner with other studios that they aren't making in-house, have not really hit it for me personally. In my opinion, they're not games that I loved. I enjoyed playing through some of them I didn't enjoy, but I've always been asking for Xbox to create something bigger and something better, and it's good to see there's a trajectory of games that are coming that are much better than what they've done in the past, and stuff that they're doing in-house. But there are also a bunch of games that they are partnering with for other studios and other publishers, and that's going to give us a nice mix and more games than we've ever played in a long time. If you ended up enjoying this video, let me know by liking and subscribing to the channel. Hit the bell to be notified of new content, and if you want to further support the channel, you can join by hitting the join button below. That will give you access to the channel membership with early access to videos, monthly giveaways, and custom emojis in the chat, and a custom banner next to your name. Also, I have a Patreon with multiple tiers that you can also support the channel and get access to new and exciting things. And also check out the XNC podcast. I've done 10 episodes there. I can't believe that's gone by so quickly. I've had big industry people like Destin Legary, Major Nelson, Jeff Rubenstein, and some big people that are in the community that are talking about gaming on their own shows and their own channels as well. But I want to know what you think of Xbox taking a more narrative and single-player based approach. Which games are you looking most forward to? Let me know in the comments section. And while you're there, please be nice.